Hello everyone, this is Karmavore, and today we're going to be looking at my Firestorm character for 3.15 Expedition League. Now, it's been a lot of work, admittedly, to get this running. There's still is room for improvement. There's a lot of stuff that kind of can be made to be more optimal. But as it stands, I've invested a lot of time and currency into this to make it viable. It's been probably about a couple-week project at this point now, but I think we'll just jump right into it. So I am playing the Elementalist. I didn't really think going Inquisitor made much sense over the Elementalist, since we just get Battle Mage for free off the Martyr of Innocence Highborn staff. This staff is pretty much what carries a lot of Firestorm anyways, so it's pretty much best in slot. So we'll go over the passive points here. I'm taking Legion of the Primordial. Now the Golems are providing an actual decent amount of both survivability and damage, as well as quality of life through things like cast speed, and also crit chance. We are running the Bastion of Elements just to have a little bit more of defensive layers, also not having to roll over Reflect Immune maps and being able to do things like Uber Itziri. I was running Shaper of Flames for a while because of the hits always ignite clause and all damage can ignite clause, because we are running gear with added fire damage against burning enemies, stuff like that. I was running a lot more, admittedly, in the beginning, but I've kind of phased a lot of this stuff out, but there still is some. So it is nice to have a chance to ignite, but because of the way this build is working with crit, we're always basically igniting. So yeah. Then we're taking the two major notables through Mastermind of Discord and Heart of Destruction. Obviously these two are just, they make sense, and they're the most damage, especially the Mastermind of Discord. When I was looking at the POB, exposure itself was adding like over 1.4 million DPS, so it is very important to have these two nodes. And the convergence is really nice when you're mapping, because you just have wide AoE. You can see here that there's a decent spread, so that's nice to have. And then when you're hitting unique enemies, we get the other side of convergence, which is just 30% more elemental damage. It would be nice to have more uptime, but that's just the way it is. So you have points of high burst, and then minimal downtime where you're recasting things like Arcanist Brand, and Assassin's Mark, and Infernal Cry to kind of reset these huge burst spikes that we have. And we can just go over the passive quickly. So I wanted to mitigate as many points lost, because we do fan out into a lot of areas in this tree, and at this point almost every point matters quite a lot. So we start here and we head all the way down to the life nodes, getting the crit, getting melding, getting as many jewel sockets as we can, because we want jewels that have fire damage to spells, and if you can have both plus as much life as possible. Ideally this would have either cast speed or crit multi being the best one. We have another one pretty much identical, just has resist, life, and fire damage to spells. So after that we take stuff like Firewalker, because percent increased damage is huge. In terms of its scaling, we take Annihilation, and then we fan out this way, get more life nodes, then we head up, we take our Cluster Wheel. The Cluster Wheel has Cremator, Disorientating Displays, and Smoking Remains. The only two that really matter are Disorientating Display and Cremator. Ideally, we would want to have Smoking Remains here, but Cluster Jewels are kind of an annoyance to, I guess, roll, because the order matters. So getting the right, 1, 2, and 3 is important, but I think it goes middle is left, top is right, and then bottom is top. So it's kind of confusing the way that works, but that's just the way it is. And then we have the Apocalypse Creed Small Cluster that provides Enduring Composure. This is really nice because endurance charges help with our survivability. It also gives increased armor, which isn't that big of a deal, but in the end, I think we end up with like 43% reduced physical mitigation, so that's really nice. And we take a 5 or 4 passive crit jewel that has pressure points and precise commander. Yeah, it's just a nice jewel, having the crit multi and crit chance on them both, and then having the 5% chance to deal double damage with increased crit strike chance. And then we're just taking a small jewel with Fettle. These are pretty, they're like an Exalt, but yeah, they provide so much life in the end. Talking about Enduring Composure, we are eventually going to swap away from Enduring Composure because we can gain the same effect on a Crusader plate. So it'll just have the same thing. We got some life. This base is kind of a pain in the ass. I wanted armor because we're losing 30% armor here, so we might as well just keep what we have. But ideally, I mean, to save currency, you just want to get, you know, a decent base like this that has easy access to 5 blue, 1 red. This has been a nice chess piece, and by no means do you have to do this, but by getting this chest with the endurance charge, you gain access to running another Fettle, which is another like 300 and something life, which puts us near 6,000. And going back to some of the stuff that we're also taking, we're taking the Golem Commander node for more increased buff effect from the Golems over life, another Golem. We're running a Watcher's Eye that has just Zealotry, increased cast speed while you have Zealotry. The dream would be getting like a triple Zealotry or even a double Zealotry with like something with precision, since we are running a couple auras. But by no means do you need this or need to have the very expensive one to, you know, have this build really shine. We're taking this top node. I will probably at some point be replacing this with a Thread of Hope and then just taking some of these large nodes, like Firewalker and other stuff like that, just to save some points, because then we can eventually move down here after this and take the Tireless node and getting Glancing Blows, since that works nicely in conjunction with the staffs. One of its implicits here that says damage penetrates 15% of fire resistance if you blocked recently. So we'll probably always be blocking. I think we're sitting at 43% chance to block and then 14% spell block. So it'll obviously double, and we'll be blocking quite a lot, even on bosses. We're taking crit nodes, life nodes, more crit nodes, Avatar Fire. It's just a nice one-pointer. Also means that we're not doing any other elemental damage in case you roll something funny on like a jewel. Yeah. And then we're running a Nema Stone, so we have a total of 4 golems. Yeah. Taking this left node for just, it's a big elemental damage increase. We're taking all of these crit staff nodes, and block nodes and stuff. This 2-pointer, I think, is around 300,000 increased DPS from where we are currently. But yeah, that's the tree. And then we'll go over the gear. Obviously, we have a Martyr of Innocence. At some point, this ideally would be 6-linked or 5-linked, depending on how you like to play. But I'm running an Arcanist brand setup to autocast Wave of Conviction. I want to get the Assassin's Mark also autocasted, but it might be kind of an annoyance with the mana cost, because every time it triggers, it's going to trigger the skill, which is once every second, which will then drain the mana for the skills, so it'll be, you know, almost 44 every 1 second, and we're not working with too much mana as it is, so I'll probably just end up 5-linking this and then just putting Combustion in this link here, and then keep self-casting Assassin's Mark. We're running just high life gloves with decent resist, and then damage against burning enemies. And I'm running the Anomalous Lightning Golem, running Southern Chaos, the Ice Golem, and the Anomalous Flame Golem. These don't need to be 21 or 20 quality, but the more quality that they have, the better the effect is, and all that good stuff. For the rings, we have Circle of Anguish. You definitely want... You can either get reduced mana reservation for Herald of Ash, which might end up being a little bit better depending on the setup that you use with your staff. But the +1 fire resistance is just kind of nice. And with Catalyst, you can get this up to 72% max. Fire damage, I have a perfect rolled percent increase for fire damage, and I got fire damage as one of the implicits, which was really nice. So this is just a really big DPS increase. We're running Hermroar's Resolve. This has the Firestorm enchant on it. It's probably not necessary, but it is a decent chunk of damage, so it's nice to have. The important thing about this is it obviously has life and resistances, and it has flat fire. And the main thing is cannot be chilled or frozen if you've used a fire skill recently, which we're always using. So we basically are, immune to that stuff as long as we're casting something with fire. We have an Essence Worm slaughtered with Zealotry, just because we can't run it without it, and there's no real hope of taking all of these nodes and trying to reduce aura cost and all that stuff. So it sucks to run an Essence Worm and kind of lose that valuable slot, but in the end it works out to be a lot of DPS, so it's definitely important to have, especially because we're running a crit build, so it's just Zealotry is just really good. We're running a Jade Amulet. It's probably important to have the Jade Amulet specifically because we're kind of deck starved, and having the Ice Golem is a huge increase in DPS too, so this is important to be to have your dexterity near a level where you can run it. The important stats on this are fire damage, leech's life, and +1 all fire skill gems. Those two are really important. The leech is really nice, and the +1 is a nice DPS increase. I think with this specific amulet, I'm probably going to do prefixes cannot be changed, and then scour this, and then multi-mod it, and then get minimum frenzy charges and max life back on it. So it'll be a really good amulet. And then we're running Marked for Death as the Anoint, which just gives us Culling Strike against a marked enemy, and 25% increased damage with hits and ailments against marked enemies. So obviously running Assassin's Mark for crit multi and all that stuff. So it's just a nice little synergy we got going on there. And Culling Strike is really nice. We're running... This belt was pretty... it wasn't easy to craft, but I got lucky. Ideally, this would have the fire damage against burning enemies mod, but I got really lucky with the fire damage percent increase, as well as a really high life roll and some resistances, as well as strength. So this ended up being really good, but I essentially just took a Stygian Vise with a Warlord influence type, and then just used fossils with Pristine and Scorched, and just rolled it until I got it. It took 3 or 4 tries to get the burning mod with decent resistances and stuff, but I knew that if I kept pressing, I could probably get a little bit better, and ended up landing this probably around 20 tries. And then we're running boots with, again, dexterity on them. We have a high life roll, movement speed, and more resistances. It's basically just what you're going to be aiming for in the end, is just lots of resistances, as much life as you can squeeze, because in the end we don't really have that much, so it's important to get as much value as you can in terms of life. For Flask, we're just running a Panic Divine Flask with burning immunity on it, or removes burning when used, I guess. Running a Mana Flask because we have to, we're mana starved, and Firestorm costs a lot. Drained quite quickly, and then with the Arcanist brand setup, it's you kind of need it. We're using the Wise Oak. It's important to balance your resistances accordingly so that your fire is always higher than everything else, so you get this penetration. It's a decent flask. You can probably replace it with something else, but it's cheap enough that it just makes sense to run. Bottled Faith is the only thing that I like you don't need in this build. It's obviously a lot of damage missing if you don't have it, but Itzeri's Promise does just fine as a damage flask if you want to run that and don't have the currency for a Bottled Faith. And if you are running Itzeri's Promise, all you do is unsocket Avatar of Fire and just find somewhere else to put that node for now. Because then you can deal the % extra chaos damage and stuff from Itzeri's. And then we're running a Rumi's Concoction for more armor and, you know, block chance and all that good stuff. So that's all the items. Yeah, what else? For bossing and stuff, it's
when
usually
I'm ready and not before.
A rotation of like Arcanist Brand and marking them, and then using Infernal Cry, and then using your flasks, and then unloading your charges. And then you kind of have to do this process over and over again. You'll probably want to be spamming like
I need more mana.
as much as you want, or as much as you can, but some bosses like Cirrus, you know, require you to be kiting and moving around, so it's nice to have Unleash. I guess we can go to the skill links for Firestorm itself. I'm using Awakened Elemental Focus Support. You can just use the base version, it doesn't matter, it's just more damage to have the Awakened version. Using Anomalous Firestorm, this is very important, so do splurge on getting the Anomalous version. Using Increased Critical Strike Support, I'm using Divergent Inspiration. It just reduces the mana cost, I believe, or this one's just, yeah, reduce mana cost. So it's nice to have. Using Anomalous Unleash support, this does increase the amount of time it takes for your seals to come back, but the versions compared, like Anomalous to normal Unleash, Anomalous is by a large margin a lot better, so does seal gain frequency or decrease, doesn't really matter too much. Using increased critical damage support. We're using Arcane Surge with Flame Dash. We're using Infernal Cry with Urgent Orders so that it's quick to cast. And this generally clears screens if things are almost dead, because it'll just instantly blow up the pack and the chains, and it's really nice to watch. We're using an Onslaught with Wave of Conviction and Power Charge on crit and Arcanist Brand, so that when you Arcanist Brand, your wave will pop out and then it'll crit, and then you'll get Power Charges, and if it kills something, you'll get Onslaught. But specifically on bosses, you have a 10% chance to get Onslaught. So it's just a nice little thing to have. And then on certain bosses too, when the Arcanist Brand is attached to them, Wave will give you an indication as to where they are. So that's a nice little thing. Using Anomalous Assassin's Mark, it's just better than the original version, so it's nice to have this as an upgrade, but you can use just the original. Like I said, we'll have Combustion in this setup so that we're having a little bit more minus fire resistance. Using the 4 Golems, a Herald of Ash, a Steelskin, a Summon Skitterbots, and Precision. So in the end, we have about 4 active auras and other stuff like that. And then we have our 4 Golems. And yeah, we're running this, just another fire damage with life and resistances. It has some ES, which is nice, but again, we want the double roll. Yeah, I think that's it for the build. I can run a quick map showcase, kind of just show you how it works. We'll just run Jungle Valley, sure. The build plays really nicely. There's a lot of AoE and explosions, so it's really fun to play. It's really, there's a lot of clutter at times.
When I'm ready and not before.
And then you can see with the Arcanist Brand that the wave will just fire out in random directions. And then we have power charges, we have Onslaught. We can try with the Infernal Cry, just to blow up the screen. Work. Yeah. It's really nice to be able to play Firestorm and self-cast it and then actually work and it do decent damage. It's been a couple leagues since I've wanted to play it, and it took me and my guildies a long time to kind of get this build working, but I feel that it's in a very good spot, and there's upgrades that still can be made, so I'm not even done completing the character. I've invested, you know, a lot of currency thus far, and it still has more room to grow, which is amazing. It's hard to find builds that don't have like an immediate floor or ceiling for progression. There's a lot of little minor things I can do, like the Thread of Hope, and, you know, switching out a little skill point here and there to squeeze more life in. But yeah, I guess I can go kill the boss and kind of show you how that works. Just wait for him to spawn. So drop us out, Mark, Infernal Cry, unload. The damage is there. It's tier 16 at Awaken rate. Some bosses like Cirrus are kind of a pain in the ass, and I don't have any wisdom or post rose because I got rid of them. So that's nice.
I need more mana.
Hopefully I can get a squirrel. I can show you the POB numbers just to confirm that we are sitting quite high. I'm just trying to run back to start here. Perfect. Anyways, so we'll go over the POB quickly. So POB is stating that we're at 1.5 million, or 5.1 million, sorry. The 100% crit chance. Now, this is obviously with everything up, but in most circumstances, everything outside of like consecrated ground, and we can just untick most of the stuff. Onslaught, just say, and Convergence should always be up. Having blocked recently is something that we'll have later with Glancing Blows, but just for now, we can take all this stuff off. Bottle of Faith, Wise Oak, and we're still sitting at 3.7 million. Obviously, we'll have Combustion up all the time with the Arcanist brand, and we'll always have a Assassin's Mark on the boss. Without it, we lose a huge chunk of damage, so I mean, it's always important to have this up, but it does last 10 seconds, so there's almost 0% chance that it should not be up. But with everything up, and this would be that rotation that I was talking about of doing the brand, Assassin's Mark, Infernal Cry, all your flasks, and then unloading. That's the big chunk hit that we'll be most likely getting. What am I missing? Oh yeah, my flask. But yeah, that is Firestorm. I'm really happy to have this video be out there finally for, you know, other people that want to play Firestorm. It sucks to be self-cast, but it is what it is in this current climate with PoE. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have fun with the build.